So, words of wisdom, a guide to knowing Yud-Hey Vav-Hey's presence. Davida Psalm. Yud-Hey Vav-Hey. Who will be blessed with only fleeting moments of your presence, like those I experienced hearing Ra'ud chant Hashkivenu, and when I felt your presence davening with thousands at Javits and in my home sanctuary during COVID-19? Who will be blessed to know your presence all the days of her life? Those who live by a moral compass, practice tikkun olam, give tzedakah, is resolute to bear witness to injustices, and knows that facts matter, who does not make false statements, is kind to all people, and holds her family of flesh and blood accountable. With eyes wide open, sees the deplorables for who they are, but pays tribute to those who do the work of Yud-Hey Vav-Hey, standing by promises, even when it bears heavy on her own soul. One who gives freely, with no exception, and follows a code of ethics. One who behaves in this manner shall dwell on your holy mountain.
Wow, beautiful, Randy. And I love that you maintained the structure. Very interesting. And Davida's Psalm and Words of Wisdom. Beautiful. So would you tell us a little bit about writing it?
Sure. After the first time we read this, the first class at night, when I had my insomnia, which is every night, I started to think about visiting God's mountain versus living on God's mountain, and how that to me became knowing God's presence. And I have, on fleeting occasions, and I'm very lucky, experienced the energy of God. I experienced it for the very first time in the Church of the Holy Apostles when Ra'ud was chanting that beautiful melody she does on with Larry Kay on the last concert that we had, that one. And I was like, could that have been what I thought it was? And maybe it's the energy of the people around me. I felt it at Javits, but I was sure when I was the only one in my home sanctuary. Mickey was not even on the same room as me, and I felt an energy that was just so calming. I know as a scientist, this may not sound, it is. I know God exists, Yud-Hey Vav-Hey exists, and I want to know that presence every day of my life.
Beautiful. This says it so beautifully. And I love, again, you use it and the way you've created to live by a moral compass. So you're creating it's a little less heavy than some people have seen in the original Psalm, because that doesn't mean we're perfect all the time or able to do it all the time, but that we have a moral compass that we're trying to live by. I find that beautiful. This is a great description. Great description. Thank you for this. Beautiful. Really moving.
All right. Michael Goldstein.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh,
yes, we can hear you, Michael.
All right. I'm going to read it and then you'll ask me questions. Just a moment. Okay. A psalm in the style of David's teaching. Who may enter and spend time in the tabernacle of the greatest good? Who may experience limitless love? A human who is simple, direct, honest, speaks truth from his or her being. A human who does not exhibit hurtfulness toward others, so neighbors, friends, or relatives will not criticize him or her. A human who reacts with repugnance toward those who are evildoers, yet values those who may be awed or frightened by the good, who keeps solemn promises, though they may cause harm to oneself. A human who does not commit usury or take money to hurt someone of pure and humble origin. That human will never stumble and consequently could enter the tabernacle of the greatest good and experience limitless love.
Beautiful, Michael. And I love this. I just love all these definitions of what it is to live this life of godliness, of holiness. A human who is simple, direct, honest, speaks truth from his or her being. Beautiful. So speak to us, Michael. Tell us about writing this.
Well, I tried to be very literal and follow, the original printed text and choose words of my own to express what's expressed there. I also used your direction when you said, look, you're writing the psalm, you can write however you feel. Now, I felt that this was a wisdom psalm, and that's why I dashed the various ways that a human could enter the tabernacle of the greatest good. That's how I saw that opening line. And that's why I repeated it at the end, even though it wasn't part of the text. I wanted to underline that that's how you get in. That's how you're doing good allows you to enter the tabernacle of the greatest good and experience the limitless love that exists within it.
Beautiful. And isn't this a fantastic opportunity to use the psalm to help concretize and clarify what you think what does a good life look like? Beautiful. And so simple and very, very direct. Beautiful. I love it, Michael. Thank you.
And as I always say, it's a commercial for joining a congregation.
But listen, you could join a congregation and not enter God's mountain. One is not necessarily the path to the other. I pray and I work hard that CBST helps people access God's mountain. Otherwise, we might as well be a parking lot.
Thank you.
Okay.
Michael.
Thank you.
Regina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Regina.
An empty tent. Laminatsea. Seriously? No misdeeds, only acts of justice and ever honest. Aspirations for a different time or none. Seek justice and others choose, not permitting perfection to stand in the way of the good.
Oh, I love this, Regina. And I love the good in those, whatever the word is again, the caps.
Initial caps, small caps.
I don't know why I have a hard time, but it's just,
Michael, yes.
and I love the intertextuality between you and Michael Goldstein here. So talk to us, Regina. I love this, and I love how clear and simply presented.
Well, I was first struck, as many were, including the formal translators, of the rigidness of the guidelines here, and that motivates the kind of cynical tone in the beginning. And it brought me to this quote that I've discovered since was originally from Voltaire that says, do not allow the best to stand in the way of the good. The best doesn't really exist. And once I got to the good, the caps certainly came from Michael Goldstein. So good timing, Annika. Thank you.
And I just love you really the verse, seek justice and others choose, kind of sums up what your understanding of leading a decent, good life looks like. And then I appreciate very much the not permitting perfection to stand in the way of the good is part of the injunction to all of us to how to live in life. Beautiful, love it. And I just seek justice and others choose, and wow, we'll live a very good life that way.
Thank you so much. Now, drum roll, we have a first-time author.
Yay!
Here, Sue, take it away.
Thank you. Some say there is. Ooh, does that sound weird to everybody or just me?
We're hearing some feedback. I don't know why exactly.
Okay, I'm going to try it with the lower volume. Some say there is no God, but they freely give of themselves to benefit others. They step in where they see injustice. They are honest in their lives. They will not turn a blind eye to oppression to benefit themselves. From these things, they get strength and find stable ground. God dwells within the people who walk the righteous path.
Beautiful. Beautiful, Sue. So thank you for being a first timer. Welcome to writing.
Nerve-wracking doing that for the first time.
Well, tell us about writing it.
I joined the class for the start of Psalm 14. And so it's like a pretty dramatic way to start with these two Psalms.
Yes.
But I had the benefit of being in Chavruta with someone who does not believe in God. And it completely impacted the way that I read Psalm 15, and then in retrospect, how I felt about Psalm 14. You know, the idea in Psalm 14 is if you don't believe in God, you are evil. And in Psalm 15, what's so clear is that it's really about what the person does. And it made me think, well, maybe it's a different way to think about God altogether.
Beautiful. Fantastic. Well, we're very happy to have you in the class. So I think we should say, if this is your first time, we should say a quick Shechianu. So grateful to have this. And we have to remember to do that every time now we have a first timer. And I apologize if I've forgotten. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shechianu v'kiyamanu v'hiyanu lazman hazeh. Amen. We are so happy to have this. And I love that. And I think 14 and 15 do play off of each other, whether or not it was intended. And some people think it was, but it doesn't matter if it wasn't intended. It certainly functions that way. So beautiful, really beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay. Monica Raymond, if you could just have a level check before you read.
Testing.
If you could almost whisper, it's just so loud from your computer.
A little too loud.
You, but it's just
Okay.
just
How about this?
Gain
Okay.
down, Monica. That's what I
even
want.
lower. Just whisper it out.
Lean back.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're maybe too close to the microphone.
Right. Go ahead.
Prayer after Psalm 15. Not on your windy mountain, but maybe for a few days sojourn in your tent, remote and impartial one. To be blameless, Prince Mishkin, innocent, simpleton of kindness, it's too late for that. My bitter tongue, I'm not going to give that up.
Wait, we just lost you completely. Started.
Monica, we just lost your sound
We
entirely.
lost you. We can't hear you.
Infinity, and anyway, maybe it's better to stay on the step-by-step ground. Mountain air thin, from which commandments and edicts eject lightning arrows. That's for mountain goats balancing rocky battlements, not humans. But still, I would rest a few nights in your tent to shelter from the cold wind.
Wow. Oh, the longing. You really capture the longing here. But talk to us. It's beautiful, Monica. Your writing is spectacular.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it kind of what everyone else was saying, it just feels so beyond what's possible, like too late for what's possible. And I feel that I'm basically a good person, but I don't feel an untarnished good person like the one Psalm 15 is talking about. I tried to bring it in 5, but it took 6. And I mean, it actually hews pretty closely to the original, my responses to the original. So, yeah.
It's beautiful. But
Thank
still, I would rest a few nights in your tents, sheltering from the cold wind. Stunning. Just stunning. Thank you, Monica.
Thank you,
You're
Monica.
welcome.
To Rosansky.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Why am I? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
There's a little
Okay,
bit of a feedback there, though.
Let's make sure everyone needs to be muted except for me, the rabbi, and the reader.
Okay, great. Okay. Dear God, whoever or whatever you are. Oh, I'm reading a slightly different version, by the way. Dear God, whoever or whatever you are, how do I get to be in your tent? Arrive, stay for a while, leave, and perhaps return? I have been there at times. Does that mean that I think you exist? Under the chuppah, that was a tent. I bought the fabric, white and gauzy seemed nice, hemmed it, put it up on poles borrowed from the prior celebrants. I still have it somewhere. bound together under that chuppah, wrapped together in a talit I had bought for the occasion. White and gold seemed appropriate, the only talit I have ever owned.
Mm.
And it was a tent of love, that day, that place, the people that were there, the love in the room, the bouquets we forgot to carry, the cold wind that early spring morning, the godchild who flew in from Turkey and organized the details. 5 years later, a legal wedding on offer for the asking in Toronto. Was there a chuppah? I don't remember, but I was certainly in God's tent that day too. We were alone in the city that impossibly sunny day. 2 young Israeli men found by chance were our witnesses, and later we theirs. Months later, a certificate arrived in the mail from Thunder Bay, emblazoned with a moose and a deer, our names fuzzy from a poorly maintained dot matrix printer. It's now 17 years later, and I still live under that chuppah, that tent. I have been so lucky to love and be loved, and I know the wind can blow it away at any time.
Wow. Sue, this is fantastic. And what a totally different reading of tent and God's presence, but really beautiful. I love this. Tell us about it.
Thank you. Thank you. I actually, when we, talked about the Psalm and talked about like the difference between standing on a mountain, which seemed permanent, and a tent, which seemed, to me, not permanent. When I think of a non-permanent structure, I do think of a chuppah. I think somebody had mentioned in the conversation about a sukkah, and I said in the notes about, in the chat about a chuppah, and actually at our wedding, I can't find it now, but there was a poem called "The Chuppah and the Sukkah," the sukkah and the chuppah, or something like that. It was about the similarity between a sukkah and a chuppah, and I had my nephew read it. But anyway,
and those are correct. Those are absolutely good analogies.
But when I sat down to write it, I tried to do what you had suggested, Rabbi, about sort of going through stanza by stanza and, what does this mean to me? But then when I got to the chuppah thing, when I got to the being in God's tent, all I could think of was the chuppah, and and then I just went off from there, and it is more a psalm of gratitude. I'm very aware that it's differs from the original in that regard.
Of course, but that's okay. That is absolutely what the Psalms are for. And what I described to do the verse by verse is if you don't have a reaction to the Psalm, go to that place, and then it might take you somewhere else, which it did in your case.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it was.
It's the discipline. It's the kind of the scaffolding that we use. Hello,
she's there. Joanna's here. She liked it too.
Hi, Joanna. Nice to see you. And I want to add another thing that I think that's so powerful in the comparison between God's tent and chuppah is that one of the things I often talk about, and I think I've done it in this class, so I can't remember, is that love is, for me, is a lot like, it has a lot of similarities to a concept of God. And I don't mean the weird God of white guy with the big beard. But just like we can't know God or have proof of God you can't have proof of love except in action, right? You can know it, you can feel it. But how do you prove what love is, that you know what love is? How do you prove love? And I think the way we prove God is the same way. It's in actions. We see actions that are godly. But you know the feeling of love, you know the feeling of being loved. And that's the access point, I think, to a sense of connection to holiness. And this is a beautiful, beautiful description of that. So really fantastic.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
And the detail, really, again, writing is all, when you can write with that kind of detail, it's beautiful. It helps. We're all part of it.
The bouquets we forgot to carry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ira.
Hi, this is titled Das himmlische Leben. Live without blemish, never speak an unkind word or break a promise. This is what it takes to enter the holy tent. You must be joking. Even God cannot live up to such strict standards. Will she be shut out? We were created in the image of the Lord, blemishes and all. If I'm not perfect, if I fall short, miss the mark, surely so does God. I am not waiting to get the invitation to climb God's mountain. Instead, I will build a holy sanctuary of my very own. Everyone's welcome to join me here. All you need to get through the doors is an open heart. Leave your perfectionism outside the door, please.
Fantastic. So I love this reaction against the psalm, so to speak, against the pshat, the simple meaning of the psalm. And that is a deeply Jewish thing to do. It's a deeply, deeply Jewish way to react to text. And I love this. I love the language that's, you must be joking. And it's really reacting against and saying, no, I'm rejecting what I see as the simple meaning of the psalm. And here's, in contrast, I will show you what I think it should be. And that's just perfect. Just really fantastic response to the psalm. And for many of us for whom studying text is a beginning thing, we imagine that always when we encounter a text from the Bible, we're supposed to agree with it all. And it's only when you really start to get into text study that you understand that that's not, sometimes the text is there precisely to be a reaction against, or to help us sharpen our understanding, because we might have a negative reaction, that's a deeply Jewish thing. So beautiful, Ira. Tell us about writing it.
So I actually, listening to Monica and Regina's Psalms today, I think this falls into those categories of what you just said. I mean, I had this reaction to sort of this demand for almost being perfect before you can before you're allowed into the tent. And so I was reacting to that. Originally, I was going to stop after the first 5 stanzas of these haiku stanzas, but it didn't feel right to me. So I added the last ones, which felt a little bit more personal in my own reaction to like what it takes for me to be able to live in a holy way with my imperfections.
Beautiful.
And so that's why I say, you leave your perfectionism outside the door.
Yeah.
No, but we can't do it perfectly. We'll never do it perfectly. And yet we still can live a holy and a good life with our blemishes and with our imperfections.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And I usually don't give these poems titles, but when I was thinking about it, I kept thinking about this Mahler song of the heavenly life. And I was thinking of sort of the tent or the mountain as some kind of symbol of heaven, or what heaven is, with, being a perfect place. And so I decided to title it the name of that song.
Well, and some of us feel like Mahler's music is certainly access to that heavenly place, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic, Ira. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ira. Alice Sales?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We
yes.
can hear you. Great, Alice. Thank you.
Oh God, where is the righteous person? The one who walks upright and never stumbles, keeps his word and never lies, who cares for the homeless, doesn't just walk by, who never pollutes, destroys the earth, or enjoys white privilege while others suffer, who won't kill animals or pen them in while we search for cures and eat our steak. And where is the good mother? She who never hurts those she loves, fails her children without meaning to, blind to danger, unable to protect, regrets everywhere. Who dwells on your mountain finds peace in your tent. I stumble, shaken, don't see the tent, can't find the mountain. I stagger through life, hoping for forgiveness.
Wow, Alice, this is spectacular. I'm so glad you've joined the class.
Oh my God.
And I love this question. Where is the righteous person? Where is the righteous person? That's our question, right? Where that is the question. Tell us about reading it.
I was so scared to send it in.
Oh, Alice, this is fantastic. Thank you.
But I felt like it was supposed to be a psalm of wisdom. And I started by trying to do a psalm of wisdom. And then I fell into a black hole and I couldn't get out. And it became just a very personal lamentation, maybe, not a wisdom psalm. And actually, when I just heard Ira's psalm, I felt so good because I felt like, oh, good, maybe that's the way to climb out of my black hole.
Well, I think it's very hopeful, actually. I think your psalm is very hopeful. Who dwells on your mountain finds peace. I stumble, shaken. I don't see the tent, can't find the mountain. I stagger through life, hoping for forgiveness. It's so deeply, deeply human. And I think all of us can relate to that. Where is the good mother? I mean, all of these things are beautiful. And when we say it's a wisdom psalm, you're using it as a way to get at some deep truth about yourself, from yourself, that you're sharing. And that makes it authentically a meaningful offering that reflects what the psalm's getting to, even if the language is different or we react against it. That it's inspired this, fantastic.
Thank you. And I think it's your comments like that about other people's psalms that give me courage. So thank you very much.
Well, that is what the psalms are. I'm really translating for everybody's stuff. For those of us who don't have access, this is what it's about. This is what the psalms are about. And you're doing, this is just a beautiful, beautiful job, beautiful example.
Thank
you for it. Thank you for it.
Alice. Ben?
And Alice, make sure you read the comments. Folks are putting comments up, so make sure you see those.
Thanks for sending out the comments. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
Ode of Hope and Despair. Pan is dancing on my electronic page. Imaginary putty take wing. A scarlet cardinal alighted on old maple, and timid azure is sneaking a peek. Can hope be far behind? Joy? Primordial man, inhabitant of paradise, innocent of sin, wholesome in righteousness, you the dweller of the sacred tent. Couldn't you keep your hands away from that apple and let the firmaments remain unshaken?
Wow. Talk to us, Ben. I love the ode of hope and despair. You're actually capturing what so many of us have been saying about the psalm.
It's thematically, this has nothing to do with the psalm. It's completely a reaction, an emotional reaction to the psalm. When the first reading, it struck me that there are no evildoers, no enemies, no death, no instruments of death. It was the first psalm that we encountered that's wholly positive and almost joyful. And that's what created the first part. It reminded me of a day I felt like that in spring, almost like the first song in Oklahoma, or What a Beautiful Morning.
Uh-huh.
But then after the class discussion and the concept, and a lot of contributions touch on that the psalm is really contingent and aspirational. It made it very difficult. And I thought that the only two human beings that ever achieved that were Adam and Eve for the few hours between creation and original sin. So after, everyone is contingent and we can't get there. And so I wrote the second part, which is much darker and with greater words and greater phrasing. So it's completely with the emotion, has nothing to do with the content.
Again, which is completely a legitimate response. It is it's what the psalm evoked in you. And I love the use of nature and of the contrast to despair, you know, and the primordial man also becomes a metaphor. How come people keep screwing up, right? How come we as human beings, faced with different choices of good and evil, so often humanity chooses evil? And that is an ongoing question. That's a profound question. Beautiful, Ben. I love your writing.
Thank you.
So we have had many different media in which people have chosen to express themselves. We've had writing, we've had painting, we've had drawing, we've had dance, and we now introduce yet another medium that Sarah Siegel has chosen to use for her interpretation of Psalm 15. Let me pull this up. Sarah Siegel has chosen to use a Pinterest board to explain her reaction. Sarah, would you like to like us to explain this to us?
Sure. It looks so different on your setup than mine. David doesn't show up twice on mine, but that's okay. So I just have to say, I'm still feeling a huge lump in my throat from Sue Rosansky's version. I just so love the tent as a chuppah. I thank you. I'll keep that with me all day and for longer. Okay. So my imagination was most captured by Miyishkon al Harkatshecha, who will, to me, Yishkon, I learned modern Hebrew, Shchuna is a neighborhood, and I really latched onto that concept of neighbor and wanting to be God's neighbor. So thank you to Chazan Naomi Hirsch. I'm not going to talk about the stranger angle of it that I rejected. I'm just going to talk about the neighbor piece. Wow. I wonder if there's a way to, yeah, I guess there isn't a way to show it all at once. If you do control.
I may make it a little, go ahead, say that again.
Much smaller, yeah. It's fine to make it real small, okay. So the idea that, thanks, that's right. That's what I'm meant. Anyway, so I have this idea of the tent. You can see the tent versus the mountain images. What was fun for me was to just put in keywords and have like contemptible or promise or, and I, you know, and this is what popped back. I had to include Oscar Wilde because who doesn't love Oscar Wilde? As a truth teller, I have this from my friend. I don't know if you know French, everybody, but it's basically whoever tells the truth is soon to be found out sooner or later, is sure to be found out sooner or later. So anyway, yeah, I guess I also liked here this modern take on, so I have a lot of images here about neighbors. And the one that you can't see because it's too small with on the grass is a sign that says something like, you can hate masks, but love your neighbor, so wear a mask. So I thought that was modern. Uh-huh. This image from the New York with the snake coming out of the mouth is from the New York Times, and it's actually about a Cynthia Ozick book. So what's fun is to click on each of these, and I'll put the URL in here in a moment so people can go out and look at it. I'm not going to go through each image at all. You know, you can play with it yourselves. I'll also tell you that I went looking for Psalms, period, on Pinterest. And I'm going to put that URL in first because I found that really fascinating that people are using Pinterest not only to put out recipes and kitchens, but if you go to that, you'll see as of the 12th of January when I did it, all the things that people are putting up around Psalms. But I'll say URL as well. So that's all I really have to say about this. Thanks.
Well, I have to admit, I've never been on Pinterest. So this is actually my first time actually even seeing this. So what a fantastic collage or a combination of things, and very, very, very creative to use this modern technology and this concept to create this kind of collage. I love this idea.
Thanks.
I love this idea.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and put the one to this particular board, but also I just want to say Pinterest is something that I like to use that in a way nobody else uses it for things like this. So you'll see my Yiddish board and all kinds of stuff. Okay, thanks.
Fantastic. They're so creative. I love that. And as Harold said, I love the kind of pushing out and pushing into all different media to explore Psalms. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
All right, hold on just 1 second while I get us back up again. Whoops. Oh, I hate when I lose this. Oh. Stop share. Okay, stop share. Screen share. Psalm 15. All right. We are up to Lori Spear.
A song of our times. I want to live in a goodly place, but I don't know if I have earned that right. Is it enough if in my heart I acknowledge the truth, but do not speak truth to those in power? Is it enough that I do not speak evil, but do not chastise those that do? Is it enough that I do no harm to my neighbors, but stand by while others do harm? Is it enough that I hold contemptible people as abhorrent, but not work to prevent their contemptible doings? Is it enough that I never lend at interest or accept a bribe, but allow payday lenders to rob the poor and dishonest public officials betray their oaths? I believe I have heard the answer to my questions. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Martin Luther King.
Beautiful. It's so powerful. And I love the rhythm of the repetition of "Is it enough?" Very powerful, very powerful. Speak to us. Tell us about writing this.
Well, I wrote this in a fit of pique. I was so angry from hearing from people that I know and love and respect and admire, and who kept telling me, "Oh, Lori, you did such a great job with the election. You worked so hard, blah, 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 blah." And I know that these were people who could have done what I did without any question, and who did nothing. And who sat out the election and bitched and moaned and but didn't raise a finger. And I was just really mad at them. Like, let it out.
Isn't it great to have creative channels, but you then are creating something that I think speaks to all of us. And these are questions we ask ourselves and each other. And you're doing it in a very powerful way. And it becomes a wisdom psalm because it's in response to the question of what is it? What would you say is a good life? And you're answering it by asking these questions. Very powerful. Thank you, Lori. Love this.
Thank you very much.
I will be reading Shep's offering. Oh, come on, God, you can't be serious. You know better than anyone that I am a mere mortal. After all, it was you who created me. I'm just saying that it's just not realistic to expect me to live a life without blame and always do what's right. But what can I say, Adonai? But what I can say, Adonai, is that I will try my human best to acknowledge truth, not speak evil, and honor those who also love the Lord. If that's a deal, then I will keep my word. And God, please keep yours, and do not let me ever stumble or fall.
Beautiful. Shep, you're always so direct, and I love it. Very clear. And not realistic to expect me to live a life without blame and always do what's right. But I will try my human best.
Well,
I appreciate that, Shep. So speak to us.
It's a little bit like Donna's and Ira's, but I just thought this is totally unrealistic, and it needed a negotiation like Abraham did in Sodom and Gomorrah. Jews that negotiate for everything, and this needed a conversation. It wasn't realistic, but I'll do my best. That's basically it. Usually I'm more serious, but I just thought this was really very unrealistic, and God should know better. After all.
And I like that you're reminding, this is a very Jewish thing, to remind God that you have created me, God. So if there's a flaw here, you've got some responsibility in that. And if I'm imperfect, it's because that's how you created me. That is a very, very, very Jewish dialogue or conversation with God. Love it.
I didn't even want to bring up all the mistakes our ancestors made with the golden calf and all the other mistakes he forgave. So forgive this one.
Wow.
It's really, I could point to all different traditional Jewish texts where the rabbis say to God, you've got responsibility here. This is how you created me. So very good, Shep. I really like it. Thank you. Love it.
And for the final offering of Psalm 15, Linda Watskin. Linda. Linda, are you here?
Is Linda here?
Well, you know what? I'm going to go back to Lori Krotman.
Linda is here.
Okay, thank you. Linda Watskin. Is she having trouble unmuting herself? Is she? All right. We're going to go back then. I am reminded that we have a Lori Krotman offering. Lori Krotman, I don't have your offering. I'm sorry. If you have an offering that you could email to me really quickly, or I can give you screen share. And Linda, are we going to? All right, I can't see. What? Can someone clue me in? Is Linda Watskin here?
All right, she doesn't seem to be responding. So if she's here, there's something wrong.
Yeah, it says she's here and she's unmuted, but her camera's off.
All right. Well,
Linda is here. Hang on just a second, Harold.
Okay.
Can you use my?
I'll read it on Dorothy's.
Okay.
I'll read this on. I can read it on Dorothy's.
Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. May it be so. I remember the friend who taught small hands how to create cookies with M&M eyes. One orange candy, corn nose, a strip of red licorice with turned up ends, and the person on a subway train who led a car filled with people hanging on straps in singing popular songs while the car stood at a standstill in a dark tunnel of tracks. Imagine if you and I, if all of us could step beyond our own shadows and walk toward light, sprinkling seeds into waiting soil.
Beautiful, Linda. Imagine if you and I, if all of us could step beyond our own shadows. Wow. Speak to us, Linda. I'm so glad we have your voice now.
Well, I was thinking about the fact that it isn't only our words, it's our actions. We're God's feet. And suppose we collected the stories of those people who carry out God's love. So that was some of the stories.
And I think this is one of the things that will come through over and over again in the Psalms, is that goodness and holiness is created by speech, by thought, and by deeds. And there's a different balance depending on where we are in our lives or what's moving us in particular. But the idea that thoughts, speech, and deeds increase holiness or decrease holiness is pretty powerful. This is beautiful, Linda. Thank you. And I love the may it be so. Fantastic. Thank you.
Rabbi,
Is that complete?
Yeah, that is it for Psalm 15. Rabbi, do you have anything you would like to share with us to end?
Yeah, I want to end our time with a piece of the prayer for our country that Rabbi Ayelet Cohen wrote for us, that we have said at CBST every Friday night for 4 years, and we will continue saying it. And to invite people at 11:45, we're going to do a watch party on the CBST Facebook page and maybe on mine, if those who want to watch the inauguration. The vice president will be sworn in at about 5 of 12 or 10 of 12. She's sworn in first, so that the president is inaugurated at exactly at noon. Prayer for our country.
I have it here. I have it here.
I'm going to do the second paragraph just so that for time. Yep. Let's all say this together as we pray for our country in this moment of time. Source of all life, guide our leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts, but keep them, guide our leaders with righteousness, strengthen their hearts, but keep them from hardening, that they may use their influence and authority to speak truth and act for justice. May all who dwell in this country share in its bounty, enjoy its freedoms, and be protected by its laws. May this nation use its power and wealth to be a voice for justice, peace, and equality for all who dwell on earth. May we be strong and have courage, to be bold in our action and deep in our compassion, to discern when we must listen and when we must act, to uproot bigotry, intolerance, misogyny, racism, discrimination, violence in all its forms, to celebrate the many faces of God reflected in the wondrous diversity of humanity, to welcome the stranger and the immigrant, and to honor the gifts of those who seek refuge and possibility here, as they have since before this nation was born. Let justice well up like waters, and righteousness like a mighty stream. And let us say, Amen.
Amen.
Let this be a day of prayer and of hopefulness.
Amen.
So
We're going
Rabbi,
to close the room now, folks, and everybody's welcome to join at 11:45 on the CBST Facebook page, and maybe I'll see if I can do it on mine as well.
and
So that
tomorrow,
maybe
how do we watch the prayer service tomorrow?
that link, we'll put the link up in the Psalms Facebook group. Okay.
Thank you.
I'll send it to you, Harold.
All right, thank
We'll
you,
put it in,
everybody.
we'll put it in the Facebook group. And no class tomorrow. And then on Monday, Marcia Melnick and I are going to do a discussion about the CBST Siddur. And then we'll start Psalm 16 on Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Harold, for your voice.
you. Hallelujah that we live to see this day.
Yes, I agree.
Amen.
It was only 4 years, but it felt like 40.
It did. Yeah,
Thank
we were in the wilderness. We were definitely
We're
in
out of the wilderness in an hour.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
We were
We've
in the
made
wilderness.
it.
We're out of it now.
We made
45
it.
minutes.
Good.
Okay, I'm going.
Bye-bye.
I'm going.
Bye.